Hi guys, this is episode number 1 of Ask the Bullet Journalist, where I will do my best to answer any questions that you may have. So let's get started. Okay, so one very popular question I get isn't about the notebook, it's about the Android version of the Bullet Journal Companion. Okay, so not a fan of iOS? I get it. The short answer is we just haven't found the right candidate yet. I want to create the best possible tools that I can for you, and in order to do that, I need the most talented people that I can find. So the simple answer is, it's going to happen on Android as soon as I find the right person to do it. Okay, so on to the questions. Anita asks, how do you plan and manage multiple projects? I have something like 8 that I need to complete by summer's end. I'm in academia, and this is my most troublesome issue. Okay, Anita, so there are a couple different ways, as most things with Bullet Journal, to tackle multiple projects. Personally, when I have multiple projects, I separate my projects into different collections. So, this could be project 1, this could be project 2, you can use as many pages as you want, but I use collections in order to group all information related to the same project, and then I can use my index to quickly access those projects later. One thing you can do is create a dedicated index. So a dedicated index is where one page of your index is just dedicated to a project. If I have a gigantic project that lasts 4 to 6 months, then it's easy for me just to see all the collections within a project on a page. In school, for example, you could use one index page per class. That is one thing you can try out. One thing you can also do if you need more space is you can actually fold an index page in half, thereby creating 2 columns. So you can actually have the index run down both sides of that column. Okay, let's get to the next question. So Robbie asks a very common question. What do I do with a task that needs to be completed on a certain day and that day hasn't arrived yet? So okay, there are a couple different ways you can go about that. If something needs to be done on a specific day, then one thing you can do is you can add it to your monthly log. So here you can very quickly add an item that needs to be done on a certain day. So that's option 1. Option 2 is that you log it like anything else. Part of bullet journaling is the reflection process, and the reflection process is 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening where you simply review all the tasks that you have that are open. Reflection works for multiple different things, but one of those things is that it keeps you aware of the things that you're working on. So rather than having to write the same thing down every single day, you start by scanning all your open tasks. By doing that, you can also see if something has a certain date. If something has a date, then it makes sense to migrate that item to that date on that date. So let me repeat that again. If something needs to be done May 15th and it's May 13th, you write it down on May 13th, add the date, and then at night when you're doing your review, you'll see that that's open. And then on May 14th, you do a review, you still see that it's open. And then on May 15th, you could migrate the task onto that day and make sure that you give it the priority indicator, which is the star. So option 3, if an item is a couple months out or even a couple weeks, falls outside of the month in which you capture it, you can add it to your future log. So what I like to do is I capture the item, add the date, and then when I go through my reflection, what I'll do is I will schedule the item in my future log or migrate it into my future log. So quick recap. Option 1, you can add it to your monthly log on the date it needs to be completed. Option 2, you add it with the date on whenever you heard it. So you add it in your daily log on the day that you heard about this item with the date. And then you migrate it onto the day once that day comes around, and you'll be aware of it because you're doing your daily reflection. And a daily reflection is simply scanning through your notes from the previous day to make sure that you're aware of what you have to do. Option 3 is that if something has a specific date, you can schedule it in your future log. Now this is particularly good for items that fall outside the month in which you currently are. So things that are 1 month to a year or to 3 years out, you can add it into your future log. So I hope that helps. Next question. Question comes from Jen, who wants to know, how do you keep only one item for each day under the monthly log? Is this intentional? If so, what is your reasoning strategy behind it? Okay, Jen, this is actually a really good question. So a lot of times when I shoot these videos, I try to write things down that can be read and for clarity's sake. But in my actual bullet journal, what I will do is actually have multiple items that I rapid log on each day. So I can have 3 to 4 items on every single day of the calendar. So in this case, updatedbulletjournal.com, went to gym, very, very short pieces. For me, the monthly log a lot of the time is about having a bird's eye view of what happened that day. So I'll actually enter items after they occurred, because a lot of the times plans just fall through, and so I don't like to put things in preemptively. I always add items to my monthly log after the fact, unless they're birthdays or something like that, which are very unlikely to change. So yes, in fact, I have multiple items inside each day of my monthly log. It's really helpful because I can very quickly get a bird's eye view of what happened during that month. So it actually becomes an index for this month, which is super helpful because sometimes I need to find out what I did on what day. So I can quickly just scan down and I can see multiple items. One thing you'll also notice here, something that I do a lot, is use my monthly log as my own tracker for habits that I'm trying to form. Okay. So that's it for the first episode of Ask the Bullet Journalist. I hope that this was helpful for you guys. Please let me know what you thought of the format. This is a whole new thing, and I really would appreciate your help in figuring out what would be most helpful to you. So please leave questions and comments below, and I will do my best to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching.